People who used to be school bullies. Why were you so mean? And what made you realize you were mean? I was like 15 over 16. And it was towards one girl. She began to date a friend's ex. Said friend told me she took her boyfriend and a bunch of drama. I acted like a typical mean girl towards her, and it was rough. Turns out my friend was the worst, and I had acted awfully to someone who didn't deserve it. I ended up messaging her on MySpace and called her. We worked it out. We are actually really great friends now, and can laugh about it 15 years later. We swap books and I see her quite often. We actually talked about this very situation last time. It made me tear up thinking about how mean I was at that time. I'm so glad I sucked it up and admitted I was wrong. Similar story for me, except we were around 10 years old. A new girl came to my school and a boy developed a crush on her. A friend of mine had a crush on said boy, so spread all kinds of rumors about the new girl. At lunchtime one day, egged on by my friends, I confronted the new girl and pushed her over. The new girl was so calm about the whole thing, and I remember thinking at the time that I could not have acted the same if bullies were in my face and pushing me. Anyway, flash forward 8 years, and I bumped into the girl at a CD shop. We had a nice chat and organized to catch up for coffee. I apologized for what I had done when we were kids, and she was so understanding. Flash toward another 15 years, and she is one of my best friends. She is still so calm and mindful, and has taught me a lot about myself and life. I hate the way we met, but I'm so grateful she was so forgiving, and I couldn't imagine her not in my life now. One of my many bullies messaged me on FB about 15 years later to apologize, and said she did it because her older brothers were mean to her. A lot of bullies are abused at home. I recently did this to one person we bullied throughout high school. We had the same interests, but I always thought that meant competition. Now we are chatting about guitars and church and current events, like we are old friends. After I apologized to him, I told her I hoped she felt better, and left it at that. She routinely physically assaulted me in addition to verbal stuff, and I feel bad that she had a rough childhood, but she made mine rough too. And I didn't see any value in maintaining contact with her. She did say she was prompted to do this by beginning to see the same behaviors in her own kids, which she was taking steps on, and I did thank her for that. Thought I was funny. Liked making people laugh at others' expense. I never thought about their feelings until I was much older. Now I tell my kids every day before school to be kind and everyone's friend, and to stand up for people. I want them to be good humans. I was really into Ninja Turtles and Power Rangers and Mortal Kombat. People would make fun of me. I was one of the biggest kids in school, so I would physically retaliate. Years later, when I ended up average size and people grew bigger than me, I turned to bullying people by being the funny kid. But I was just mean. I wasn't funny. I never had close friends because of all this. For the record, Ninja Turtles, Power Rangers, and Mortal Kombat are cool AF. I work in child safety and interview a lot of current and former bullies. You're probably not going to get honest answers out of the worst bullies. The people on the fringes, the ones who were bad but not awful, are going to reply. They can often reflect on it. They were abused at home, bullied by others, or just angry at the world for other reasons. The genuine bullies, the super cruel girls or boys, almost never recognize how bad their bullying was. Either they were so deeply traumatized by other stuff that was going on, more intense violence at home, or sexual abuse, that their memories just aren't there, or worse, they don't think they were bullies. They are still bullies. It's a truly small world sometimes. I moved several hundred miles from the county I went to school for most of my years at several schools after graduating high school, and don't regret it. I write stories with people and I joined a new site. Everyone was pretty chill. It's 18, so there's mostly people my age. And then someone in the Discord chat mentioned the county they went to school in. And we got to talking. And then she shared her name. The girl that led the bullying that was so bad my friend committed suicide was now on the small niche site that I was on, with a bestiality thing that would later get her booted. Thank God, and more issues than I ever had during the time I suffered under her. When I told her I wouldn't be talking to her, and I told her why, she said that she didn't remember any of it. She was such a terrible person all through school that a girl ended her life over it, and she didn't even remember. I think she faked remembering. Some people have legit trauma reasons for acting like this, but others are really just spoiled little shirts. TL. Doctor, I was abused at home. I didn't have the skill of being able to take another person's perspective, so I didn't realize that I was hurting others so much. If someone asked me how would you feel if someone treated you that way, my honest response would have been that people do treat me that way every day, and that how I feel about it is something I don't acknowledge. Was abused at home and had a split home life. I just acted that way because it felt normal. I didn't know how else to relate to other people. One day, probably around 5th grade, the principal, who was very kind and involved in student life, took me aside and had a long talk with me. She explained how my actions were making the other kids feel, that my behavior made them feel scared and hurt their feelings. She asked me how would I feel if somebody said and did those same things to me. It was hard for me to understand what she was asking me. I didn't think that how I felt mattered. People did treat me like that every day, and I was not allowed to think about how it made me feel. She wasn't mean or judgmental. She was someone I liked and trusted, and she just patiently explained it to me until I at least kind of understood. I was shocked. I hadn't even realized that the other kids truly minded the way I was treating them. I know that sounds dumb, but I thought that it was normal to be mean and hurtful. That it was just how you were supposed to talk to people. If they cried and got upset, it didn't really mean anything. Because it didn't really mean anything when I cried and got upset at home. When I told my family that they were hurting me, they didn't stop. They punished me. I was expected to wake up the next day and truly feel/act like nothing happened, or I was ungrateful and a terrible child. It was wrong to talk about or think about how their abuse made me feel. So that's just what I thought hurting people meant. That it didn't really matter, and that by next day they should just be over it, or it was their fault for being a dumb cribberby. Needless to say, I didn't have many friends, and I didn't understand why nobody wanted to be around me. But she explained to me that no, it's not normal for people to treat you that way, and it's not normal to treat others that way either. She put me in school counseling too. It wasn't great, but it at least helped me learn the basics of how humans are supposed to communicate. I still treated people badly sometimes all the way until college, but I think that the principal talking to me was the point when I actually realized that something was wrong with my behavior, and when I actively started working on it. I feel bad about the way I acted, but at the same time, it's all such a jumble of trauma, and it felt so normal to me that it's hard for me to even remember. It's hard to identify exactly what happened and what parts were or weren't my fault. I don't really think about the bullying part too much anymore, to be honest, because it's such a small part of a much bigger trauma. Anyways, I'm sure that people are bullies for many reasons, but this one explanation, I hope that it helps someone understand a little better. Edit to clarify a couple of things. I'm a lady, though I don't mind being called man, dude, bro, etc. It was mostly my mom who abused me, but at times it was also my mostly estranged dad and a few others. I only speak to a couple of family members now. I avoid the rest, which is easy because I moved to a different state. Breaking up with my family was a super painful grieving process, but it helped a lot in the end. Please do not feel obligated to empathize with or forgive the people who bullied or abused you. I don't think the point of the thread is to reverse the position of victim and abuser, or to say that there are no truly evil people on the world. Your abuse and trauma is valid. Remember that not all types of bullies are equally represented here. The worst of the worst are probably still messed up and wouldn't answer a question like this. Please do not read this and think that you should get back into or stay in an abusive relationship. It's not your job to fix someone who is abusive. The best thing is to leave and let them sort themselves out if they can. You explained this beautifully. The part where you said, because it didn't really mean anything when I cried and got upset at home. This helped me understand in a big way. It took a really long time for me to understand that my feelings mattered and to be able to identify them. I think that's a necessary prerequisite for empathy. I really used to think that any time someone complained or cried or anything, it was their fault for being weak, and that they should be mocked for it. Honestly, that's a brutally harsh reality to live in. The world was much brighter for me once I learned that feelings matter, and that it's okay to approach others and myself with empathy and compassion. It was such a foreign concept at first though. Honestly, I'm still working on not feeling bad for feeling bad. I still definitely struggle with my own mental health issues, but at least I can safely say that I'm really careful not to be harsh and mean to others now.